Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're recording this afternoon's meeting so that others can log on and learn from us in the future. Please remember to mute your line so we minimize the background noise. And good afternoon. My name is Wendy Sachs, and I'm a board member of Plant Powered Metro New York. As you probably all know, the organization is a community-based organization committed to our collective health empowerment through whole food, plant-based nutrition, which is an evidence-based approach to nutrition that can prevent, treat, and reverse chronic illness. While we normally prefer to offer live sessions to build community around health and nutrition, of course, now we're offering this program as part of a web series during our COVID-19 quarantine. So a couple of logistics. We're also streaming this program on Facebook Live. We're gonna have Carole demonstrate for about 45 minutes, and then we'll take questions, about 10 to 15 minutes of questions afterwards in the chat. So if you've got questions, put them in the chat, and my colleague Lynn and I will be paying attention to that. I also want to welcome our friends from the Church of Advent Hope who are joining us today. So a big warm welcome. One minute to also let you know, a few minutes ago, I hopped off a call with a woman who was talking about food issues from the committee that she sits on at the UN. And what she asked us is, what's the golden rule for now? And the golden rule, of course, is that everybody across the world has to stay home. So what she said was, as long as we have to live by that golden rule, let's make it a golden time with our food. And she meant in terms of health and nutrition. So on that, I am now handing this over to my dear friend, Chef Carole, and take it away. What's on the menu today, Carole?
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Lynn, and welcome to my home and my kitchen. I wish that you were all here with me and we could be sharing the same space, but due to distancing and the nature of what we do, we are recording. So we have on the menu today a Mexican theme, and I love Mexican food. It is the Latin part of me. I'm Jewish and Latin as well, and I moved from the Bay Area to New York, and people would say, what is it that you miss the most about the Bay Area? And I'm sure supposed to say my friends, but I would always say I miss Mexican food, true Mexican food. So I started making my own tortillas and my own salsa and my own, different kinds of fillings. And that's what I'm gonna share with you today. So we are going to make tortillas. We are going to make mushroom carnitas, which is basically a filling for the tacos. And then we are going to make a cabbage slaw, and we are going to make a mango salsa. So we've got a lot on our plates today for 45 minutes, but let's get started, okay? The very first thing that we are going to do is we are going to mix our masa and our dough. Hopefully all of you have gotten the recipes, and the basic recipe for any time you're making tortillas, the basic recipe is 2 cups of masa, 1.5 cups of water, and then sometimes optionally you can put 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I am SOS free and I don't use any salt, so I omit the salt entirely. So today I am cooking with blue masa, and I will show you that I have a ton of it. I recently bought a 5-pound bag, and it is something that you can definitely find in your grocery store, although these days all flour is very difficult to find. So you might want to order it just on Amazon. And I've taken a great liking to this organic, it's called Organic Blue Masa, and it's Gold Mine is the brand. So I'm just showing you that. I conveniently put the label in the big jar here. And I am going to make half of a recipe, although your recipes are the full recipe. So I just wanted to show you that. And we are gonna, I also gave you a lot of variations. You could just make the masa with the water and not make anything fancy. But I have taken a liking to making flavored tacos. So sometimes I put porcini powder in, sometimes I put in, there are various things just to mix it all up. So today we are having blue masa, not golden, but blue. So we're gonna, we're gonna have nice, pretty blue tortillas. To this recipe, I'm putting in black poppy seeds and white poppy seeds. Okay, and then I am going to put, I ground one little bit of black pepper. Okay, and that's it. No salt, nothing. And then to this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get 3/4 cup of hot water, just tap water from the sink. Okay, and you don't always need all the water, so I don't just dump it in, but I dump in most of it, and I leave a little bit behind. Okay, because it really depends on where you're cooking, your altitude. You know, if you're living in the mountains, you might need, it's drier, the air is drier, there's different moisture throughout our seasons. Sometimes my apartment is humid and boiling and I don't need as much water. So you can see that that is coming together, okay? And it is really good if you could let this dough now sit for an hour, because basically what you're doing with the water is you're rehydrating the masa. Masa is different than cornmeal, so I want to make those two distinctions. And masa is made with lime and processed sometimes with wood ash. So it's a totally different kind of corn than corn that you would make cornbread with. You want to use masa to make tamales and you corn tortillas and pupusas and all those different, and cornmeal, something that you would want to make, you know, your cornbread. Okay, so I just want to distinguish that. And, you know, polenta is a form of all of that too, a different kind of corn, and again, a different grade of corn. So I'm going to just get in here with my hands. I like feeling everything, because sometimes I can actually feel that this is very, very wet, which means that I might have to add a little bit of more masa, but I'm going to let this sit now, and we're going to let this sit. And I just want to show you that I gathered it up like a ball, and we're going to cover it, and we're just going to let it sit. And we won't have an hour to let it sit, but we will let it just sit. And we'll move on to our next thing, and we'll come back to that, okay? So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to make our mushroom carnitas. And the recipe of mushroom carnitas actually comes from one of my very favorite online cooks. She has two cookbooks, an Indian cookbook and another kind of cookbook. I wouldn't call it so much Indian, has more variety, but her name is Vegan Risha. And she is amazing. She cooks all vegan food, and she comes from an Indian background, and she definitely explores other food outside of Indian cooking. And I found this carnitas recipe, and I practically have it memorized, but I provided you, and we'll go through the steps of making that. So what we are going to do is we need 12 ounces of sliced mushrooms, okay? One of those small packages that you buy in the store is 8 ounces, and I actually had a pound, and it's okay for me to have more, and I did a slicing up. And I wanted just to quickly show you, because everyone, I think I've showed this a million times, but you can never show it enough. people say, do I need to wash my mushrooms? And I'm like, no, don't put them under the sink, because you don't want to have running water and get them all, they're just going to absorb a lot of water. But you do want to clean them. So you get a paper towel and you just clean the dirt off, you know, and it comes off. And these are clean. And I'm just going to show you quickly. I like to, now this one has the little stem and it's already kind of inside. It's kind of like a belly button that's kind of poked inside, you know, but it has a stem. And I'm just going, and it's already flat. It's not going anywhere. But, and I'm going to just slice these. And I'm going to remind you when you're slicing that you're not holding your hands out, but you're curling them back. And you're using your fingers as a guide, okay? So I'm just slicing. And I'm not going to do them too thin because they're going to cook. And I don't want them to burn, okay? And I usually cut off a little bit of an end, and then I leave that so that it's a flat bottom, and then I start to cut the mushroom, okay? That is how you cut a mushroom. Anything that rolls, even when you're cutting a carrot, you never want things rolling. So this recipe calls for 12 ounces of mushrooms. I definitely have a pound, and I want to say very much that the recipes that I have given you all, or that you will get after the demo, if you haven't gotten them, please use them as a guide, okay? I had to write down some of these recipes because I didn't have recipes for things. This particular thing is a recipe. I got it from someone else on a blog, but I'm telling you that the way you learn to cook, okay, is to learn to taste, learn how to make adjustments, and learn how to just experiment, okay? So I have these mushrooms, and we are now going to quickly marinate them, and we're going to get them in the oven because they take 30 minutes. Okay, so what the recipe calls for is it calls for 4 garlic cloves. People sometimes ask me, well, my garlic clove, what is the measurement of 1 garlic clove? I mean, that is a debated question. I mean, really, because sometimes they're teeny, sometimes they're gigantic. If they're gigantic, I sometimes say 1 clove is 2, you know. You just, again, just estimate, okay? You'll learn what a normal clove looks like, and you'll either add more or you'll add less. But I have chopped a lot of garlic, okay? So that is all going in there, okay, like that. Also, what goes into this recipe is some onions, okay? And it calls for 1 whole onion. I had 3/4 cup of a red onion, so I sliced that up. And I'm going to put that in here too, okay? And I actually have a little bit more onion that I have from another dish. And I'm just gonna, it's just sitting in my refrigerator doing nothing. So I'm like, might as well get it out. And this wasn't a full red onion anyway. So I'm just gonna show you that I'm just going to, again, it's kind of rolling, but I'm just going to cut it like this. Again, I'm showing you the slicing of the onion, okay? And that onion is definitely going in here. I prefer the red onions in here because they're a little sweeter, but this white onion, you could use a white onion. So we're good here, okay? I'm gonna move this cutting board for this moment. And we are going to get our liquids, okay? So what we need for liquid here is we need to have a 1/4 cup of orange juice. And before I ever cut into my orange, any citrus actually, I actually give it a good zesting. And gives me an opportunity to show you a zester. This is a long nose one. Very sharp, comes with its own guard. And I feel like this is, when you're not cooking with salt, the ways that you bring up flavor is with citrus zest and fresh herbs. So I always have a little container like this in my refrigerator that has backup zest, because it's kind of like if I was gonna cut into this orange now, and I would think, oh, I'm wasting all that orange, you know? Like, how could I have wasted that skin? It's kind of like a 2-for-1 though, the citrus You get something on the outside and you get something on the inside, okay? And we're gonna use this zest later in the coleslaw, okay? And we could use it here too. The reason I keep a bunch of this in my refrigerator too is I love it on my oatmeal in the morning. It's one of my favorite things. Okay, so we're just going to get rid of that for a moment. And we're going to, these are really juicy oranges, and I think that half of one is going to give us our quarter cup. So make sure, I still use these old-fashioned squeezers. I have a handheld juicer, but sometimes I really like that you get to have a mix here, okay? And I'm just gonna remove this for a moment and leave this here. And we're gonna measure this, okay? And I'm gonna measure, and I'm gonna measure 1/4 cup. And I was exactly right, voila. I knew that the oranges, you know, when you're buying oranges, you want them to be heavy. Any kind of citrus, you want them to be heavy so you know that they're full of juice, okay? So the good thing about having one of these old-fashioned citrus things is you can use it as a bowl, actually, and I kind of like that. So to this, we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, and I have tamari here, which is a gluten-free, okay? And we're gonna add 1 tablespoon to this, right there, okay? And we're also going to add, so we need juice, and we need lime and the soy. And that is basically gonna be our marinade. Now I do have here a half a lime, and I told you that I have a groovy one-hand squeezer juicer, okay? And we are going to just get this juice. Let's get this juice in a container here. We're using, and just get it squeezed. This thing is awesome. This is made by Chefin, and I love it very much. There are enamel hand squeezers out there. This is a really hard plastic, and the diameter of it is really good. Sometimes I'm able to fit in a half an orange. I save all these. I put this into my glass of water. I also, oops, I just dropped it on the counter. I always save those ends. I clean my copper pots with the lemon or lime and kosher salt. So those are, again, getting using natural cleaners is a good thing. So we're back to this, and we need 2 teaspoons. Okay, so we need 2 teaspoons of lime juice, okay? 2 teaspoons. And that's that. We will use that lime juice again. So we're just gonna leave it over there on the side. So this is basically our marinade. Very simple. Juice, 2 kinds of citrus, and soy, okay? And over that, we're going to toss this, okay, like that. And then we are going to use our hands, okay? They are clean, I promise you. It is the best way to get in there. This is the way we learn to do it in the restaurant, and there is nothing better than mixing with your hands. And all that juice is getting absorbed. Now, ideally, we would let this sit for at least 10 or 15 minutes to marinate, okay? But, you know, this is, we're on the webinar, and things have to move along. So we are gonna get this into a pan, and we're gonna get it cooking. I have the oven preheated. I actually have a surprise in the oven. It's not part of our agenda, but it's gonna come out in a minute. And if we have minutes at the very end, I'm going to make 2 salsas for us, because it's one of those things. Mexican food is a little bit, reminds me of Indian food, that once you start making it, you want to add on, one more salsa, one more thing, one more bean dish. So that is ready to go. I'm just going to rinse my hands here. Now I usually use a sheet pan to do this, but I run into a casserole pan that I haven't used in a long time, where I was cleaning out my cabinets. And I thought, you know, I'm gonna just try to make it in this casserole pan for a change. So I have this pan, and it looks like this. And again, I always make it in a sheet pan, but I thought, you know what, why not? Now we could just dump this in here, but I like easy cleanup, and this is gonna create a lot of liquid and a lot of caramelization is gonna happen. So I'm using a piece of sheet paper, of parchment paper. This is a brand that I like. If you care, people ask, can we use a Silpat? You can use a Silpat if you have that. But I do like this brown paper for easy cleanup, and I'm just gonna put that in there. Now, if this were my sheet pan, this would lay totally flat, but I'm going to dump all these in. Now, it tells you to make one nice clean layer, but as I told you, I ended up with many more mushrooms than the original recipe. So I've kind of got them piled in here. It's not so great to have them piled in here, but they're still gonna cook. We'll have to look after these, and but they are gonna go right into the oven. And I've been preheating that oven because I've been cooking something. And that is my little surprise that's coming out right now. And that little surprise is this. And this little surprise is 2 Anaheim chilies, 1 Serrano chili, an onion that when I flip it over is going to be absolutely beautiful. Now again, I want to tell you, all of these vegetables are very hot at the moment. Try not to burn myself. But this has no oil, has absolutely no oil on it, okay? It's just the parchment paper. I husked the tomatillos, and I just put the chilies on, and I have some garlic. So that is gonna go off to the side. Now, we only are gonna make green salsa if we have time, okay? But the oven is definitely hot, and we are gonna get these in the oven. Okay, we are now officially going back to our tortillas, and I am going to take our dough. Now I have 2 bowls of dough because I did a bowl a long time ago, like an hour ago, and then the dough that I just made with you. And so we have a lot, but we're not going to cook all of it this moment, but I just want to tell you that we have a lot. This dough feels a little wetter. Now, I am going to get my cast iron pan onto the stove here, okay? And usually, I just put a pretty high flame on, and I just kind of leave it for another couple minutes, but you can use any kind of skillet. If you have a carbon steel pan, if you have a stainless steel pan, if you have a ceramic pan, all those different kinds of skillets. I like the cast iron pan because it really can take the high heat. So, and it's perfect diameter because I make little like 7-inch tortillas. So it's kind of the perfect little thing. And this is feeling just a little bit dry, but good. And what I often do at this point, I want to just get my cutting board back here. I want to show you, often I will divide the dough, and I'm showing you this in advance, and I don't do this much, but if you feel that you don't have a good eye to making individual balls, and you want to really divide things up on your own and nicely, you could just make a ball like this, and then you could cut individual pieces, you know, and those would be your pieces like this, okay? But I personally don't need to do that. I actually like to put it all back in, and I'll show you kind of how I do it, but I just wanted to give you an example if you didn't know how to grab things so that they're kind of even for you, okay? I almost didn't show you tortillas, but it's my very favorite thing in the world, and I was worried that people wouldn't have a tortilla press. Now you can get a tortilla press for under $30, or you can buy a really cheap one for, I don't know, $15. I've had mine forever, and it is the best thing because I don't just make tortillas. I make a lot of flatbreads, Indian breads, other kinds of flatbreads. And I often, when it says roll your dough into a little circle, I just get out my little tortilla press and I put the little ball in and I press it. So it's not just for tortillas. And I want to just show you what the tortilla press looks like. It looks just like this. This is a very good one. A good one in the sense that it's cast iron. Again, it's heavy, and you could buy a cheaper one, which is aluminum, but I recommend the cast iron. Okay. Now, in my instructions, because I was worried that all of you would not have a tortilla press, I said you could take some wax paper, because I think people have wax paper sometimes, or parchment paper, and you could make a ball. You could make a ball, okay, like this. And I'm going to lower this because I feel the heat is breathing down my back here. You could make your ball, and you could put it between some wax paper. I want to show you that. I will show you that without the press, but first, another step is important. A Ziploc bag, okay, a small sandwich bag. And what I do, this one I reuse. I actually rinse it and reuse it like 50 times, believe it or not. I wash it and I dry it, and then it goes back to the press. But what you do is you take the bag and you cut it open on one side, and then you cut it open on the bottom, and you basically end up with a bag that's open like that, okay? That's what you do, okay? So it's hinged in one spot. And what does that do? That is you're never gonna put your dough directly on the cast iron, because you need a barrier, okay? Otherwise, it's gonna totally stick, okay? So my first thing, because I was concerned that all of you wouldn't have a press and you were going to run to make tortillas, is I woke up this morning and I thought, you know, what is a press? A press is actually just some weight. And yes, you could roll it with a wine bottle. Yes, you could roll it with your rolling pin and put it between parchment. But this morning I woke up and I thought, you know what? Just a pan that you just have that's extra. So if you were to take your ball, I hope you can see this perfectly, and you were to take a pan, I'm getting a pan off my rack here, this is a little tiny pan, okay, and you were just to snap it and hit it and actually kind of flatten it, and just, that is your tortilla right there, that is your tortilla right there. Okay, it's a little thicker than the press, but not bad. Okay, not bad at all. And that is a technique that I just want to show you. I'm realizing that one side was a little fatter, but you see, it works. So you don't have to have a press if you don't want to get one, but I do absolutely, I recommend, okay? Now, if for some reason you had put too much water in your dough and things were, you would know, because this would not come off, okay? This would not come off. But I'm going to throw this ball and I'm going to get us started. So here we put the plastic in, okay? And we put our ball about 3/4 of the way to the back, okay? And we put the plastic down and we just squish. And that gives us our perfect circle, okay? And then I lift this plastic up. I take it and flip it into my hand, okay? And it's gonna go into this very hot pan. Now, do I know this pan is hot? I absolutely do. If you wanted to test it, we could just put a little water, and I don't think you can hear that necessarily, but the water just totally sizzled and danced across the pan as hot water would in a pan that's really hot. Okay, and this is going to go right in the pan. Okay, and it's the first side takes a good 2 to 3 minutes, and then I move on, and I keep making more. Now at this point, because I know that the dough is the right texture, I know that I don't need to add any flour, I actually go ahead and make all the balls. Okay, and I just get all of this. And I just make all the balls, and I kind of make sure this way, if I were making balls and I was doing it, you know, as I went, I might end up with a teeny bit at the end. And this way, if I make all the balls right this very minute, like this, I don't end up with something. So these all feel kind of roughly the same to me. Okay, I don't think if you could see all those balls. You don't even have to make them into round balls. And you see I have one that's really small. So what I then do is I just take the little bit of extra and I just divide this so that it's onto these other balls. okay? You could definitely make a tiny baby tortilla. I mean, I do play with them. If I'm going to a party, sometimes I make a bunch of little 2-inch ones. But that is basically what we are doing here. So while that's cooking and it's very hot and I see that it's ready to turn, I get my spatula and I give it a flip, okay? And I will show you that in a minute. But in the meantime, I'm always, while I'm cooking it, I am flattening. It's a process. Cooking and over here. Cooking and over here. Then I have a little bag. This is a really beautiful one from Guatemala. But I used to just use a nice kitchen towel because you want, when your tortillas come out of this off the hot skillet, you want to contain it in the steam, because the steam is going to keep it soft and pliable. Okay, so I'm going to show you what this looks like here. I just want you to see. Okay, very hot. It's done on both sides. I'd like it to be just a little browner. Sometimes I actually use the spatula to kind of force it down so that it is getting brown. The first one is not always as brown as I'd like, but that is good. And then it will go right into the little bag, okay? We'll make a few of those, but we're not gonna make all the dough because I just want you to get the idea of the process, okay? So we are going to take this out. We are going to flip it in the hand like this, and it goes here. It goes here. So that is the process. While that one is in, I'm putting this one here. I just realized I didn't set the timer for the mushrooms, but that's okay. I have a half an hour, and we're just going to have to deal with that. And you see here, I don't usually get so far ahead that I'm lining these up on the counter, because the less you touch them, the better. So I try just to not rush through it. I try to be calm, and because the stove is always needing your attention. And I'm flipping this now as we are speaking, and it's looking beautiful and brown. I can show you from the pan here, but it is steaming, okay? It is steaming and very, 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 very hot, okay? I just want you to know that it's very, very hot. And that is the simplicity of the tortillas. Definitely look at the variations that I gave you. I use one of the ones I make a lot is with the golden masa, and it has some hemp and some saffron and some turmeric, which is really lovely, flavorful. Sometimes I make the mushroom with the porcini. I grind up dry porcini, and I put that in with the masa harina, but I wouldn't do the mushroom tortilla with the mushroom filling. It would just be overkill. So I have to turn this. I could feel that it needed turning. Okay, it's cooking. And we're just gonna make a few more, and then we'll move on to our next things. Okay, we're just gonna make just a few more, and we're gonna cover the remaining dough with the towels, because I am going to finish these. Now, the other thing that I want to tell you is I'm on my own here, and I usually only make a half a batch, but sometimes a half a batch is meaning 1 cup of masa, but sometimes I make a big batch, and then I cut them all into, I cut the circle, I'll show you, I cut the circle in half, and I make into 6s, and I make corn tortilla chips, which I love for soups and dips, or just guacamole and chips. So these make delicious chips. And I would cook those in the oven just on a high heat, 400 degrees. I would cut a bunch of triangles, put them in one layer, and then I would, you know, just watch them and make sure they're not burning. And as soon as they're toasty and crisp, I take them out. So let's just do one more, and then we are done with the process of making the tortillas. Again, I put this in the plastic. I don't make a beautiful ball or anything. I give it a good press. Okay, that's our circle. I'm gonna put this extra dough in with the other dough so we have for later, because I'm definitely making those. I eat this a lot for breakfast, eat dinner, lunch. I often like just having a tortilla just as a piece of bread. If you're gluten-free, eating masa and corn is definitely considered a safe thing for you if you're not eating any gluten. And again, you definitely want to be putting everything in your little pocket of steaming the finished product. This is a great project for adults, but I have absolutely, it is one of my favorite things to do with families and young children. And I mean young children as young as 5 or 6, because you get immediate results. You just want to, if you are doing it with a young child, you just want to make sure that, you know, they are aware and you are aware that the stove is the pan is very, very hot. So, you know, I wouldn't let just a kid do it without that, but it is definitely a project that I've done with many, many, many children. So that is our tortilla press. Now, the other thing that I just realized, because I was talking so quickly earlier with you, is I had these beautiful spices, which we didn't put on the mushrooms, but it's not a crisis, okay? I don't make very many mistakes, but as you can see, sometimes you're not perfect. And I think I liked this presentation so much, I just thought it was just something pretty, but it needed to go on our mushrooms. So what I'm quickly going to do is get our mushrooms out. It's not a big deal. We're just going to get them out. We have to look at them anyway. They aren't barely just started cooking. Okay? Not a big deal at all. And what do we have here in our spice mixture? We have coriander. No, I don't need that. I think we'll just mix this here. So we have coriander. And I want to show you one quick thing about coriander. It's something I like grinding myself. And I do a little trick here where coriander looks like little tiny gold balls. And I put a little bit of a saran wrap and I am constantly grinding it up. And this is what I use here. So that is my little trick. I also want to tell you that Carnitas spice, I make so much of this spice all the time that I have a jar that's just labeled Carnitas spice. So we have the coriander, we have cumin, and we have black pepper. We have Spanish paprika, we have oregano here. The oregano, I always squeeze. Any kind of dried spice that used to be leaves, I always give it a squeeze. And then we have our chili powder, okay, and that's going in there. Okay, that all gets mixed up, okay? And as I just previously showed you, I have a whole jar of this always ready to go because I actually use this spice on other things. Now this is a lot of spice and I don't often use the whole spice proportion to all the mushrooms. So I'm going to put this on right now, like as if we hadn't forgotten, okay? Again, it's not a big deal. We're just gonna toss these. There's nothing wrong with getting it on now. In fact, it's maybe even better. Maybe I've developed a new way. This is what I'm telling you. You don't have to have so many worries in the kitchen. The whole point of cooking is supposed to be fun. And that is looking quite good. If you don't like things that are really spicy, you can see this is a lot of spice still. And this is how I end up with a whole jar on the side because every time I make this recipe, I don't use it all. It just seems like it's just too much. So I'm gonna leave some behind and it will just end up going in this jar. And when will I use this? I don't know, on potatoes. I will use it on, I steam broccoli during the week and sometimes I'll just put some spice of Carnitas flavoring. So that's a good tip for you, that spices and mixtures that you use often, that you just get a mixture of it and then you make a jar of it separately so you just know what that is so you can just go to your cabinet and get it. So that is the Carnitas spice. We're going to give this one more really good toss. You can see that it's already starting to cook. I've got a lot of mushrooms in here, okay? A lot. The onions are cooking, everything's cooking. It's going back in the oven. We also, at the same time, have our tortilla flipping here. This one got a little bit burned, but not a big deal. I actually like when they have brown dots, brown spots. Okay, and we're gonna turn this stove off. Well, not the stove, but the top. You can see I burned it just a little bit, but that actually makes it nice. It's kind of like pizza when you get the little black bits. It's like, it's okay. So those are going to just go to the side, and they are kind of in their little home, resting and getting all soft. And we'll just leave those on the side. Okay, so that is, we have to do a little bit of cleanup here. Not such much cleanup, but that is our tortillas, and we are making the filling. The next thing is we have to have salsa, and we also have to have salad. Okay, so salsa for some people could just be out of the jar. I use a good brand, if you like to know, called Green Mountain. I actually think I have some in the back of my refrigerator buried. I could actually show it to you. Just as I dig through the refrigerator here, just show you, because people do often ask me a good brand. This is called Green Mountain, and it actually is quite good. It comes in different mild, hot, medium, hot. The last time I couldn't, this one is particularly roasted chili peppers. I couldn't find the one I normally get, I remember, and thought, well, just try it. So it's good, and it actually lasts. But if you have salsa in the refrigerator for, you know, weeks on end, you absolutely want to always smell and check it, and you want to look to make sure that there are no bubbles, okay? Because tomatoes are the first thing it can go off in a pantry, and even though it's in the refrigerator, you know, you always open a jar and make sure there's no mold. But the thing with tomatoes is you definitely want to make sure that there's nothing bubbling. So that is your Green Mountain salsa. But we're going to make our own salsa today. But let's get on to the cabbage and the slaw. Okay, so let's get this cleaned. And we are going to make a very quick slaw. Now, this is a recipe that I've made for so long that I had to write down a recipe for you because I didn't really know the recipe. It's just something that I make up, and we are going to do that together right this very moment. We need this cucumber for later, and we have carrots, we have cabbage, red and green, okay? It doesn't really matter the proportions that you use, honestly, okay? You know, we have to, it doesn't matter. I portioned it out for you, saying that there's more green cabbage than carrots and red cabbage, but sometimes if I don't have a red, I just use these two. I also suggested that you get the Savoy cabbage, which is different than the regular green cabbage. It's got kind of a wavy, crinkly, like, looks like a brain a little bit. This is kind of, this is more flavorful and a little more spicy than the kind of round, plain green cabbage. You could also use the Napa cabbage too, but I just, again, not going to make a full recipe here because cabbage is one of those things that actually blows up before you know it. You've made enough for an army, and I, again, am one person, so I don't want to end up making so much that I can't eat it. So we're going to slice this. Now, alternatively, if you don't want to slice and you don't want to dice, you could go to the store, and I know that in the pre-packages that you can get slaw. You can get it already cut up for you, okay? So that is your green cabbage, okay? And I just used a little bit. This is going to make a lot already, I can tell. Again, I always go overboard and make too much. And it does last for a number of days, but I think it's best, you know, the day 1 or day 2. Day 3, day 4 starts to maybe take on more of a sauerkraut kind of taste. Okay, so this is the green cabbage. We have our red cabbage here. I'm going to do the same. This outer leaf looks pretty crappy. And I'm just going to give it a cut. Now the red cabbage is really for color, okay? And I'm just going to, sometimes the red cabbage is really wound up tight. The layers are really, you can hold them up. This is, I've been wanting to make recently some cabbage steaks. They, and this is, I'm gonna cut this in half actually, so the strands aren't so long. Again, look at how quickly you end up with a bowl. I mean, here I was saying, oh, I'm gonna make enough cabbage for one person, and I'm already got probably enough for 6 or 8 people. So again, you just have to watch what you're doing, okay? And do I have enough red? Well, I think I do because it's just evenly balanced, okay? There is, again, this is a thing that doesn't need a recipe. I created a recipe for you so you would have one, okay? And we are going to do the carrots. I always give a little cut here, a little cut here, the ends and the tips. I forgot to tell you that I have a bowl that I keep on my table all the time when I'm cooking. This is going to be for stock. Right now it's got garlic skins, mushroom stems, few onions. It's going to have these carrots. Now this is all for stock. I'm actually not putting in the red cabbage into there because it's too strong and it would discolor it way too much. And we need to have a grater, and we're going to use our larger holes for the grating. And we are just going to quickly grate our carrot. Again, I've made this slaw many times with no red cabbage. How much carrot, you say? How much carrot do I put? Well, I can tell you, you can put 2 cups of carrots, or I can tell you to put 2 carrots, but every carrot is of a different size and a different, thickness. So it's really something that you have to just learn to do by eye, okay? I know that that is a very little bit, and I'm going to definitely want more. The carrot adds sweetness to this dish, okay? Now, in the old days, I never really liked the creamy mayonnaise coleslaw. That was never one of my things that I liked, although it is very common in Jewish deli food, just to get that slaw with your nice dill pickle, and it's usually swimming in mayonnaise. I was always a person that liked just the oil and the vinegar, but when I stopped eating oil in my diet, I had to learn how to come up with a recipe that was going to taste as good, and I pretty much feel like I've done that. Again, this little piece of carrot that's thin either goes in my mouth or it goes right into the stock pot, okay? And I, again, get in there with my hands, I mix this around, and I say, okay, is there enough orange going through the salad that looks good? And I say, oh, it's perfect, it's enough, okay? And that, now, the secret to this slaw is good, requires a little bit of work. Okay, and I am going to quickly show you that. I'm going to move this slaw from here, and I'm just going to show you very quickly that I have a few green peppers, red onions. You could use green, yellow, or red, doesn't matter the peppers. And you're going to get your Cuisinart, okay? And you're going to get your Cuisinart. And I'm just going to plug it in over here, okay? Now, if you did have a Cuisinart and you say, oh, it's not something I have in my kitchen and I can't make this coleslaw, I don't want that. That is definitely not what I want. I want you to be able to still get this flavor into this salad. So what are you going to do instead? You're just going to chop this really finely with a knife. But the secret of this coleslaw is that I take a few peppers. Well, I try not to drop them on the floor. I take a few peppers, again, not a lot. It's not a science. I take a few red, few green, and then I take some scallions. Okay, and I have these really beautiful red scallions that are washed. I bought them at the farmer's market yesterday. They're not your conventional scallions. They're your real, true spring onions. Okay, and I'm just gonna roughly chop them, and I'm gonna throw them in there. And you're gonna ask me, I know, you're gonna say, how many onions is she putting? Well, you know what? I don't really know how many onions. I mean, it is just something that I think it's just something you just intuitively know after a certain point, okay? And I put in those 2 onions, that's it, okay? And then I'm gonna get the lid, and I'm just going to pulse this, okay? And pulsing means just a couple times, okay? Your goal is not to make it puree, but your goal is just to roughly chop it, which is exactly what we've done, very simply. And we get a spatula, and we get the knife, and I just want to show you how beautiful and colorful it is. And it looks just like this, okay? And it is not soaking, dripping wet. And why is it not soaking, dripping wet? Because I didn't pulverize it, okay? I just pulsed it. And that is the secret of our coleslaw, okay? Really, the secret of our coleslaw is that. And now we finish this up very quickly, okay? And quickly means that we're going to just make the dressing. So in the same exact little juicer that I had, I'm going to squeeze this other half of orange, okay? And we're just going to get the juice. Again, I've written this recipe down for you, but as you can see, I'm kind of just making it up as I'm going, but this is would be a 1/4 cup of juice, okay? And I'm going to add a little bit, just a little, not a lot, I have a little bit of Dijon mustard, and I have a little bit of date paste. And what is date paste? Date paste is just medjool dates or neglet dates, and it's all pulverized. And I have a jar of it in my refrigerator because I don't eat any kind of processed sugar. I stick with a whole date, and everything that I use to sweeten things comes from the date paste. So I have a jar of that made in my refrigerator. If you wondered how to make that, you can easily just Google date paste and you can find out how to make it. It is just soaking the dates and pulverizing them without the water. So I'm taking this mustard, and we are taking it and we are mixing this, okay, in here. We're breaking down I have a little whisk. Again, it's very convenient for the citrus to be already there. I sometimes take that pulpy part, which is still delicious, actually, and get that in there too. And at this point, you can use any kind of vinegar, honestly, you want. The recipe I gave you, I use apple cider vinegar, but I often use this kind of, if you have this vinegar, this is sharp white vinegar, and it's a very strong vinegary taste. I sometimes use red wine vinegar. This moment, I'm just going to show you that I'm just going to put a little bit, not too much. I'm going to use the white vinegar this time. I'm just going to put like a tablespoon, maybe not even, because we've got the citrus and it's already vinegary. The mustard is going to kind of hold everything together. Get rid of those. Okay, and we are going to put a little bit of fresh cracked bell pepper in here. Okay, and we're going to mix this up. We're going to give it a taste. Delicious, delicious, absolutely delicious. Now we could, at this point, you can pour all of it, or you can take a little bit at a time. You know, sometimes you end up with a lot of liquid at the bottom, but you get that in like that. And you, again, go in with your hands and you get that all tossed around. Now this is a good thing to make a couple hours ahead. You've got the scallions and the red peppers and the green peppers, kind of adding the flavor for you. And that is going to be our salad. Okay, so we're gonna put all this together in a few minutes. We have to make our mango salsa. We are on schedule. I think we might be a few minutes over. I'm fairly ambitious, so we are now going to move on, and we're going to make the mango salsa. Okay, and the mango salsa requires mangoes, which I have here. They are in season right now, and you can buy them on the street, 4 for $5. You can buy them at Whole Foods, Fairway, all they are in season. And if for some reason you did not have fresh mangoes and you desired mango salsa, it is something I just want to tell you that I have made many times. I took out from the freezer a bag. I have a big bag of mangoes that I like making ice cream with and things, but I do have prepared, you know, the cut mangoes that you buy at the Trader Joe's, and you could absolutely make the salsa from that. You just have to take them out ahead of time, and then you would, you know, right now they're still super, super cold. I want to show you that it's possible to use these if you didn't, you know, want to tackle getting a fresh one. And I would just cut these little things into little pieces, you know, that's all I would do. I mean, you don't want to eat salsa with a big, gigantic 1-inch chunk. So you would just cut these, and it's very cold and very slippery, actually. Don't know, just wanted to show you that this is possible in the winter, or eating mango salsa whenever you feel like it, when the mangoes aren't in season. But I definitely overdose on the mangoes when it is in season. Now, there are 2 schools of cutting a mango. I'm going to try to speed up and show you how we're going to do this here. The seed is perpendicular, vertical in here. Okay, so we are going to, the 2 schools of cutting are, you can, one, which I like doing actually, is you can actually peel this, okay? And it takes a little bit of an art to getting it peeled, but you can peel it, okay? That is one definite way of going about it, okay? And you can get the whole thing peeled. It is very, very possible. And I'm not trying to destroy it here for you, but the other way to do it, okay, is to, I'm gonna show you, is to take your mango and you're gonna stand it up. It's a little slippery. I'm gonna try to cut this bottom off here. Okay, so there, now it's sturdy. And you're gonna find your knife and you're gonna run it along that seed. Okay, the seed, my knife was right against this hard seed. Okay, there is a beautiful ripe mango. Okay, and I'm gonna take that, and you get 2 halves that are very beautiful. And then there is still flesh along this pit here, and you take the skin off, okay? You take the skin off, and you can use your knife. I usually use a paring knife here, but you can cut that and get a little more meat off, okay? You can do that, okay? That is one way of now this, I know it might sound gross, but it is the greatest thing to suck on, and I would not, I mean, maybe this is not something you would give to your dog as a bone to suck on, but this is the loveliest, yummiest part of the mango, and definitely don't go trashing it, because if you take it with your teeth, eat it almost like you're eating a corn on the cob. It is yummy, yummy, yummy. So that is for me for later. I will not embarrass myself in front of you all in the camera when I'm cutting this mango. And let me get rid of this. Okay, now, and let me get my paring knife. And before we get into that, let's just check our mushrooms, because we do have something in the oven, and we can't just forget about what's going on in the oven. Okay, and let's get our pan moved to the back of the stove. Anytime I'm thinking about taking things out of the oven, I always think, where am I going to actually take something out and put it? Okay, These are looking fantastic. They're shrinking. There's a ton of juice. And they are really beautiful. You see, I was worried about them not being in an entire layer, but you can see how great they're looking. Again, the longer they cook, you want to have the juices all absorb, evaporate. They're going to just evaporate and get, the carnitas is going to get kind of a little brown, but they only need a very few more minutes. So we're going to put those in. Okay, like that. We're going to finish making the salsa. So this is the professional way of getting this out. You carefully take your knife and you score, and you make the, you're making a small dice, okay? And then you're actually going the other way. Again, you're very conscious that your hand is underneath there and you're not cutting your hand, okay? And then ultimately you're gonna flip this out. And that ultimately is your diced mango, okay? And then you say, well, how am I gonna get that off? You can either use a spoon, or you can actually go in there and get in there with a knife and just get it cut, and it goes right into the bowl, okay? That is your diced mango, okay? A little bit of a technique, something you could practice, okay? I'm not making a ton of mango salsa. We're just gonna make one here. I'm just getting all of that pulp out, okay? And again, this is a recipe common. You would find this mango salsa. It's not even one that I developed myself. It's just something I know. I don't know why I know it. It must be something that's just subconscious. So again, I'm going to, this one, we took off almost all the skin already. So I'm going to finish taking this off. This has a little bit of skin here. And I'm just going to get this cut up, okay, really quickly. So slippery, it's so ripe. This papaya is so ripe. And I'm just going to get this cut up. And the next thing that we're going to put in this for our salsa is we are going to put a cucumber, okay? We're going to, so that's our salsa, that's our mango. And I have a cucumber. Where did I go with that? I put it right here. We wash this. This is one of those little Persian cucumbers. And I'm just going to get rid of this garbage. You could do it many different ways. I like slicing it. Again, I talk about the flat bottom, okay? And then I like cutting it like that, making nice strips, cutting it, and then we're going to just get it into a dice. Doesn't have to be perfect, but should look, you know, pretty uniform if you can, okay? And we're going to get this one cut. That's the side. And get that cucumber in there. Again, this is just like the slaw. You have the ingredients, right? You have all the ingredients, but you don't necessarily have to stick to an exact proportion, okay? And we are going to put everything together in just a few minutes. Sorry that we run a little bit over, not so much over. We did get a late start, so I don't feel so bad. And we're going to put some red pepper. I think red pepper is nice in here. We don't have to put red pepper. It just happens to be sitting here beside me, and I think that it would be nice. I have a lot of weird ends here that I'm trying to make look like they're decent. And we definitely need onions. You also need to have a jalapeno. I particularly don't have a jalapeno, but I do have, I said you could add a jalapeno, so maybe we won't add a jalapeno because that might make it spicy, but you could add a jalapeno. You want to add some cilantro, and I have a bunch of cilantro here. that I'm gonna just give it a quick chop, chop, chop. Okay, just a quick chop, chop, chop. Just chop, chop, chop. Rough chop, doesn't have to be a lot. I like saving these stems. Sometimes they actually cut to the stem. Okay, we're just gonna give this, is it a lot of cilantro? I don't know. I don't think it's too much. Okay, we're just gonna cut that. That's gonna go in there. So in my salsa I gave you, I said mango, cucumber, onion. Oh, we haven't done the onion. You could use a red onion. I definitely would use red onion, possibly a shallot. But because I have these beautiful, beautiful onions that I just spoke to you about from the farmer's market, I think that those would be most special. Okay, and we're just going to give this a quick chop. Okay, it's got an outer skin that's kind of tough. Get rid of that. Okay, and we're going to that some onions. Okay, and then we are going to finish this with some lime juice. Okay, now you can definitely chop jalapeno. Okay, if you wanted to put more spice in there, you could add some cumin if you'd like. I like adding a little bit of pepper. You could add a little cayenne. You could add a little bit of, I just want to rinse this off really quickly. You could add a little bit of cayenne, a little bit of Aleppo, which is a nice red kind of chili pepper. I like to, I just recently got this new, I belong to this great company, and it's called Stardust. I don't even go looking for it. It's from Rancho Gordo, a bean company, and this is chili dipping powder. And I've come to love it very, very much. And I've been sprinkling it on top of things. But again, alternatively, what would I use? Aleppo, a little cayenne, a little bit of cumin. And the last thing we want to get here is our lime. And I've lost our limes. Here they are. This is our lime. And we are going to use the squeezer directly on the salsa. And we're going to just squeeze that in. And I think half a lime is plenty. Again, it's really just there for flavor. We could have zested it and used the outside. We could have, but we didn't this time. But I strongly encourage you to get in the habit of doing those kinds of things, thinking about the product that, you know, the food that you're using and trying to use the whole thing, okay? And we are gonna give this a good stir. And based on the time, I'm not gonna have time to make us the green chili salsa that I very much wanted to make, because I have to leave time for questions and time for plating. But if anybody wants to stay at the very end for some reason, I will be happy to tell you how to make green salsa verde, which is just, again, gonna be all of those onions and Anaheims and tomatillos, and it's all just gonna go into my Cuisinart. And we are going to plate this food basically now. So I'm going to move this. We are going to get this out of here. I am having a few black beans that I just happen to have. We should look at our mushrooms because we have to take things out of the oven and we're under a time constraint. Let's just make sure that everything is done. The magic of TV. Actually, these are done. Can you see them? They're actually quite delicious. I have to tell you, I could almost eat all of these by myself, but I won't. But this is the kind of thing you could make 2 batches, and you could save it and put it in a container for tomorrow or the next day, and you know, keep adding it to. You could serve it over your sweet potatoes, over your baked potato, over your tofu scrambled eggs. It doesn't have to be just going into your tortilla. But again, you want to find food that's versatile so that you don't feel like you're cooking all the time. Like me, I'm in the kitchen all the time, but it's my favorite place to be. So we've got a plate here, and we are going to create our tortillas here. I probably normally eat 3, but I'm gonna take these out here like this. We're gonna make the plate, and we're gonna just put this here. And then we're going to, you can't have a tortilla without an avocado, right? And we're going to, now at this point, it's really up to you how you want to serve, okay? If you want to slice these and make it all very beautiful, but this particular one, I actually feel like having a green bottom. This is just my inspiration of layering. And when I put together my plates, I always think about how is everything gonna look color-wise. So I'm actually gonna kind of just, maybe it's better just to use a fork. And I'm just gonna smash this so that it's on the bottom. Now, if you had your tortillas already made and you needed to, let's say tomorrow, I'm making this exact same dish, I would actually take this tortilla and warm it up in the cast iron pan, and I would be doing the exact same thing. I would be building it while it's in the pan, and I'd be heating up the avocado even, but because our tortillas are still very warm, okay? And then that's gonna, so far I've done that. Okay, then I'm going to get a big spoon, one probably a slotted one, and I'm going to grab our mushrooms. They look fantastic. I normally would put them in a bowl, but we're gonna layer them here. I mean, they're brown, they've got onions, they've got all the mushrooms, okay? And I often think that everything needs a few beans. I'm a bean person, so I always add a few beans, and this is all I had left over from the beginning of the week, so why not add a little bit of black, okay? So that's looking pretty good. At this point, you can decide, do I want to have my salsa on top and when I'm biting, or how do I want to have this? I think that it would look very beautiful and colorful with it on top, okay? We're eventually going to fold these. They're getting very fat and hard to fold possibly, but you know, it's going to be a little messy, but this is going to be like this. And then we're going to get a spoon. And again, you can, if you, depending on how you decided to build this, you could put the cabbage on top. I'm actually just gonna serve, because I wanna make a colorful plate, I'm just gonna serve this and put it on the side, and I can eat the actual slaw on the side, okay? Not necessary to put it inside the actual taco. So at this point, I mean, you can attack this thing with a fork and knife, but because I'm always just ready to dive in, and if you haven't overstuffed your tacos, you absolutely can fold them. You could even fold them and try to present them that way folded, if you'd like. You know, if you were bringing this to the table, you possibly could get them folded like that, okay? They're leaking out a little juice here, or you could just take a really big bite. Oh my God, it is like a chili and fruit and peppers and cilantro and avocado. It's fantastic. It's a little bit spicy, I have to tell you, but you know what? That is, if you don't like so much spice, then you don't put so much spice on your mushrooms when you're making them, but I knew exactly what I was doing. So that is our demonstration. Again,
it looks delicious.
Again, I wish I could show you Salsa Verde because it too is delicious, but we are out of time.
Let's answer the questions, and then maybe if anyone can stay, we could just have you describe it verbally as you did.
Okay.
Can I ask a really quick question? This is Marjorie.
Hi, Marjorie.
Hi, so Carole, if I don't have a presser for the tortilla, do I have an option to use something else?
Yes, I don't know, maybe you came in late, but I actually showed where you could either take wax paper or parchment or some form of plastic, like I have the plastic, and you actually use a pot or a pan to press it. You know, you could roll it out like you would a, you know, Play-Doh, or make your own little circle with a wine bottle. But I would just take a pan and just hit it down on a cutting board, and boom, flat. I mean, that's what the press is, right? The press is just pressing.
Right. That was one of the questions in the chat, and I'll jump into the others. So one of the questions was, how do you wash your oranges in the time of COVID?
Oh, honestly, I will tell you, I'm not a paranoid about this. I am not. I wash my fruit, you know, because I use the skin of all those citrus lime. If you're really cautious, you can make a vinegar solution of water and vinegar and soak, but it's something I don't bother doing. I just don't do it.
Thank you. Product info on the lime squeezer, is that just one from Bed Bath & Beyond or Sur La Table?
I told you this brand is called Chef In. It's literally Chef S-C. No, can't even read. C-H-E-F and then a hyphen and then an N. Chef In. And it's a really good one. I have seen cheaper enamel ones that I don't like at all because of the diameter of the container. So this is just a really good brand. It comes in green and yellow.
Great. I'm assuming for lime and lemon.
Correct. But you could use it for both. I mean, it's the same size. So I think they just psychologically make you think that you need a green one for a lime and a yellow one. But you only need one to have.
How long does your date paste last in the refrigerator?
You're asking the wrong person, because my friend Mark literally just sent me 5 pounds of dates from Palm Desert. Okay, I literally go through 5 pounds of dates every 3 months. I'd say 3 months. Because because I'm a baker, okay? and I make a lot. So I make a jar of paste. I can show you. This is my jar right here. I will show you. I make a jar like this. Just, you know, it's an old jam jar, and I fill it to the top. And I do use it all week long for various things. I could be making Indian food and it says it needs a little bit of maple syrup, or it needs a little bit of sugar, or I need a little bit, maybe I'm making tomato sauce, and it's, you know, when you're making tomato sauce, sometimes the acidity is too much and you want to give it a little bit of sugar. Well, there's no white sugar in my house. This is the only thing I have. So this works. And when you're making it, I actually save. You soak the dates in water, and then you pulverize the dates, and you use a little of that water to get them pulverized. But there's always leftover water, and I save that water too, because when something calls for, I don't know, just liquid, and it needs a sweetener, a dressing, I use that water because it's sweet water. So again, trying to get mileage out of everything that you are cooking with.
Excellent. Another question is, instead of roasting the mushrooms and the onions in the stove, can you cook them on the stovetop, or would
Absolutely, absolutely. You could absolutely cook them on top of the stove. It might even be faster. Honestly.
And you add water then to make sure?
No, I probably would not, because it's in a marinade, so it's already got a liquid, and the minute that those mushrooms start to cook, they release their own juices. So you definitely would not need to saute, you know, with water like we all know how to do. Most of us know how to do. You would just cook them in your saute pan, but I would definitely, you know, do it just as we're cooking in 400-degree oven, you would want to have a high heat on your skillet so that you're sealing in those juices as much as possible.
Lovely. And then just one comment from one of our health experts that was online, just to let everyone know that when you're out in the sun, I mean, this is all delicious warm weather well, you could eat it any time of year, warmish weather kind of food. Just be careful about the skin of a mango and sometimes the skin of a lime. Some people get allergic reactions to that, so you just want to be careful you don't touch the skin of a mango to your face. It has a kind of poison ivy kind of thing. So Carole, thank you very much. I think all of our mouths are sort of watering to jump in and eat that. It just looks so colorful and delicious. I have a few announcements. Yeah, it's just to remind you all that this is part of an ongoing series. Carole will be back for the third installment of this series on May 24th, same time. And we also have a number of other events that Planned Parenthood Metro New York is doing, so do check out our website, ppmny.org. We'll be adding new programs every week, so continue to look at the calendar. And you can also find our group on Meetup. If you're not already on our mailing list, please sign up on our website and also join us on Facebook and Instagram, where we have an active community posting information and engaging with one another every day. And let's see, I think that just about covers it. So please do join us and join us on an ongoing basis.
And I want to thank everyone, Wendy, as well, for joining me in the kitchen, taking the time to learn. And I hope that I've inspired you. And you can follow me on my Instagram, Carole's Foods, CaroleFoods. I post nearly every day. I cook all the time. And these are some of my very favorite foods. And I really want to thank you so much for joining me.
Excellent, thank you. And just so you know, Carole, you're getting a lot of thank yous. This was great. It's all mouth-watering. That was wonderful, all coming through on the chat. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All
Yay.
right, bye everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Salsa Verde. Honestly, it's actually, to tell you the truth, these are just roasted onions, and I want to show you. These are some of the most delicious things, and I would actually serve this with my plate as well. But I cut those in half. I have garlic here that I'm going to eventually just take out of their little paper skins. And I have tomatillos. I've roasted every single thing that is going to go into this salsa. Okay, every single thing. And if I just take out these skins, and I don't know if all of you know what tomatillos, those are the green tomatoes. They come in their own beautiful green husks. You definitely have to take the husks off before you cook. There's one more little garlic clove here. Why do I have to have green salsa? I have to have it all when I'm eating Mexican food. And these are Anaheim chilies. There's depending on their skin, and you see I've just pulled out their center, and this is the you don't need that part. The seeds, you can open this up. Almost all the seeds are out. Often, if it's a fresh pepper, if it's a really fresh pepper, this skin will just peel right off once you've roasted it. It's coming off, but it's not coming off entirely. And so it's being a little ornery, so I'm going to use all of it. I'm literally it's gonna be used, it's fine. And all of this is gonna go in the Cuisinart, and we'll just rinse this out from the coleslaw. It doesn't really matter, to tell you the truth, because it's just the coleslaw. Okay, and all I'm going to do is put this in the Cuisinart. You could chop all this up, but if you have the Cuisinart already, or Vitamix or anything, you're just going to dump all this stuff in here. Okay, I also have, I forgot, a serrano chili, which is quite hot. I should be mindful of that. One should be very mindful because there's a lot of hot seeds in here. And if you are not wanting to make a salsa that's going to light up your mouth, You actually should get rid of those seeds. And I'm just gonna get rid of those seeds. Not doing the greatest job here because I'm in a little bit of a hurry for you, but that's okay. That's gonna go in like that. This all becomes garbage, this beautiful roasting pan. Now at this point, you could put a half an avocado in here to give it a little bit of consistency. I don't have a half an avocado, but I have a little bit of avocado. A half an avocado would be perfect. I have one, but I'm not going to ruin my avocado. I'm just going to put a little bit. Again, just kind of made up, you know, and then we're going to help it. It's up to you how much you want to help it. You want those onions right now. And then, of course, you have to taste things that you make. You can't just assume that it's delicious from the get-go. It might need a little bit of something. I think it's pretty good. It's actually good. And that's it. Green salsa, done, 5 minutes.
Carole, how long did you roast the peppers and onion and?
Probably a good 45 minutes. Like it really depends on the size of everything. You know, the size of your tomatillos. So your tomatillos are going to kind of, your tomatoes are going to collapse. Your Anaheims are going to start looking black. Your onion, if you, as you saw, I flipped it over. It was already browning on the other side because everything's either roasting. The onion was leaking out its sugar, so it's caramelizing, which adds a little bit of sweetness to this. And I would also put cilantro in this. It needs a little bit of cilantro and a little bit of lime juice. But this is the basis, but that's it.
Lovely. So again, thank you for all of you who stayed. Much appreciated. And again, you can find Carole at Carole Foods and find us at ppmny.org. Carole, did I have that right? It's Carole Foods?
Yes, you just have to remember the E on the end of Carole. Right. Yes. Okay. Instagram, because I'm definitely a visual person. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not such a Facebook person. I'm definitely a person that likes to just post pictures.
Excellent. So come back.
Thank you again.
Thank you again.